Bitcoin on the daily chart falling right now. You can see this crazy resistance channel for the last week or so. ADA on the daily chart also falling. You see this red candle in formation. I want to break down the price action for Bitcoin and Cardano in this video. It's all about composure. Compose ourselves, everybody. I want to follow the data and just really look at what's happening from a price perspective. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, and let's just jump into the video. We'll start with Bitcoin, then we'll pivot over to Cardano. I want to start with this post I just saw from Mike Alfred on X real quick. DXY ripping. It's just one of those days. Most retail investors should shut their laptops and go touch grass. If you can stay unemotional, there could be some opportunities later. This is how the game goes sometimes. This is US dollar currency index. You can see on the weekly chart making a move to the upside. This usually is not the best thing for risk on assets like crypto. And this is something that's just happening right now, right? And there are different factors that are going to affect this. I'm not going to dive too much into this chart. The weeks ahead, the months ahead, what happens here is very much up for debate. This relies on things like money printing. This relies on things like interest rates and the interest rates being brought down by the Fed. What is going to happen with these things, even going into elections? What's going to happen with the US dollar? But as you see, it's been kind of on the rise, and right now it's kind of a little bit of a breakout. If we even zoom in on the 4 hour, you can just see this is a very nice indication of what's happening on Bitcoin charts and crypto charts in general. Nice 4 hour green candle for the US dollar currency index, and then you go over to Bitcoin on the daily, nice red candle. So that's currently, from a macro perspective, one version of the technical analysis of what's happening here. But now I want to dive into the actual technical analysis, just looking at the charts, unemotional, and just really look at how normal and simple of a move that is occurring right now. Let's start real quick before we dive into the daily. I just want to show you real quick a clip. This was from 7 days ago. Check it out. That is a range of resistance for Bitcoin. Maybe Bitcoin does pop above the 20-day, and we don't get perfect resistance there to go lower. The question will be, if it gets above, what's happening at this range? Can Bitcoin close daily candles above that range? That could be a very... So it's extremely simple. If you saw those videos, this is kind of what we were looking at on the daily chart. If we zoom all the way out on the daily chart, right, we can go and we can look at obviously higher highs and higher lows from the bear market low. But we were really just looking at this area back in April. And this is just a really good example of the types of technical moves that Bitcoin and cryptos in general make, right? This move back in April right here, Bitcoin was, trying to continue higher, right? Meaning we put in this swing high and it was bouncing off the 50, trying to go higher, and it saw a lower high at a Fibonacci retracement, and it failed just above the 20-day, and then it went lower. Right? And there were signs on the momentum oscillator when that was happening as well. We had just this falling momentum for Bitcoin, right? And actually, an even similar thing happened just prior to that in February. Bitcoin was putting in a higher high and all the while putting in a lower high on the momentum oscillator. So if we go look at the current move right now, check this out. Falling momentum on the momentum oscillator, the RSI that you can see right here. Just look at this. Pretty weak bounce right there. And then we have this lower high Fibonacci retracement, swing high to swing low. And it's just this channel right here, basically. You can see Bitcoin just grappling with this entire channel, which is what I was discussing in that video, and really failing to get any type of closure above this lower high Fibonacci channel. This is a move that happens. It just happens, right? And when it happens, it's best. And right now we can monitor on the short term what happens at the 20, right? That's kind of the very short term support, which is almost exactly where Bitcoin is right now, 62,000 or 68,200. We can monitor that short term support, but if there's going to be resistance in a similar type of way that we saw lower high resistance back here in April, right? And by the way, notice it's Bitcoin on its way, this continued uptrend, but along that journey, there's these moves. So there's that lower high resistance, and Bitcoin just continued to fall, right? And it consolidated just above the 200-day moving average. I'm not saying that's what we'll see Bitcoin do, consolidate just above the 200-day moving average in the 40s. But to get some clues into Bitcoin price action right now, we can go to the weekly chart and we can look at Bitcoin last cycle around this moment, which is kind of right around here. this November to December area, and Bitcoin just hovering just above the bull market doors, similar to last cycle. That bull market door is the lower high Fibonacci. So swing high, bull market high, bear market low, and just this range that Bitcoin recently broke out of. So to get a sense of, well, what consolidation is, what is in play for Bitcoin, we can just look for consolidation all above those bull market doors, right? And we can even bring up a Lux Algo signals and overlay. We can look at this reversal zone. You can see Bitcoin made its way into the reversal zone, that red area. And right now it's just kind of pulling back in. And this is often something we see when Bitcoin gets overextended from the 20-week moving average. Here's the 20-week. Bitcoin very overextended, pulling into, cooling off really. And Bitcoin did a similar thing at this moment last cycle. If we go back and we use the this reversal zone, this red range as kind of an indicator to use for visualization purposes, makes its way into the red range, reversal zone, getting pretty overextended, and just cools down and pulls into that reversal zone. So these types of things happen. This is just what it is. Bitcoin currently in that move right now. And not to mention, I did a video last week kind of discussing when we get to these Bitcoin halving moments, oftentimes there's just consolidation for Bitcoin, right? Look at this. 2 cycles ago, Bitcoin falling right into halving, before and after halving. 2016, you go back to 2012, nothing crazy happening. A little bit of a move to the upside right before halving, and then just kind of sideways for a little bit, right? So consolidation right now, when it comes to Bitcoin, I think is very normal. And I think, as a reminder, I say this a lot lately, we're not even at Bitcoin halving yet. So we're getting a dip right now. We're going to just continue to monitor it. That's at least what I'm doing right now in the crypto charts. And then these things, I think, play into the broader crypto ecosystem and the broader crypto bull run that I think everybody is thinking we're in the middle of. But there's a good possibility that things are just now getting started. And these indicators are lining up to say that. So that's Bitcoin on the short term. Wanted to bring that up. And then this is ADA on the short term. This is what ADA looks like on the daily. A couple things I want to point out. I want to say this right off the bat. I just posted about this. I realize there are cryptos that have been outperforming ADA a lot. And I'm just saying, and I've been saying this. Number one, I don't like seeing that as an ADA holder, as an ADA bull. It's definitely not fun. But from a technical analysis perspective, and I know I've been saying this nonstop, what's happening right now in this moment is essentially exactly what was happening from this technical analysis perspective when Bitcoin was breaking the bull doors, breaking all-time high. It's essentially what ADA was doing last cycle, just above the 20-week moving average. Just big red candles. Look, 3 red candles with big dips in those red candles. And ADA is essentially just doing the same thing, just above the 20-week moving average. We're going to continue tracking what happens now on the short term because, this 20-week moving average could fail as support. We have to start talking about that if it happens. But right now, ADA is doing precisely what it did last cycle. And there are those outliers that are outperforming Cardano right now. I discussed something like Chainlink last cycle. Chainlink was massively outperforming ADA. But Cardano right now is just doing its thing. And I think it's best to put emotion aside and just let these cryptos, because, Chainlink this cycle, Matic, even Ethereum, they're just doing their thing prior to Bitcoin halving. I think it's best to put emotion aside and just let them consolidate in a similar manner that they did last cycle. If we look at ADA on the daily chart, this is kind of what I'm watching for. And then I want to just discuss this a little bit more, this ADA underperforming thing in just a minute. But I do want to do the shorter term ADA technical analysis real quick, because we just saw what it looks like on the zoomed out weekly consolidation right now happening prior to the halving. But if we go to the daily, this is still the structure that I'm watching. It does kind of get me, really watching right now as ADA's approaching this lower trend line, wondering, is ADA going to break below the trend line, right? Then we can start talking about support maybe above the 200 and maybe a fake breakout, and we're popping back into this range, this pattern. But either way, when we're approaching this lower trend line every time, and this can happen as I'm uploading the video, ADA could just boom, another leg down if crypto's just going to, capitulate in some way. We could be below this this trend line by the end of the day. That's something I'm watching on the short term. But right now, the technical analysis of it is ADA is just still consolidating within this pattern. And if we go to last cycle at this moment, ADA was doing a very similar thing, consolidating within this pattern. And you can even see, this swing high to swing low alone is a 33% dip for ADA. Not looking good, right? For ADA at that moment. And we're at such a similar area right now this cycle around. This was mid to late December of last cycle when Bitcoin and cryptos were really making some moves. Some cryptos were really making some moves. And I'm thinking about Bitcoin and Chainlink in particular at that moment. So that's just where ADA is right now. I can't do anything else but just track the charts and watch to see what happens next at these levels. Because as you know, over the years for me, it's all about the data on the screen. And I like to focus on what's happening on the screen as opposed to the general sentiment throughout these short-term moves, because people get very unemotional. I want to talk about ADA dominance. I just saw a post over here. ADA Whale was posting, he looked at some ADA charts against some other alts, and with a few exceptions, the ADA alt chart has been up and to the right, right? And this is just the way that it is, right? And here is one of those charts, and he showed a bunch of different charts where it's just up and to the right when you're comparing it to things like Matic or something, right? And I saw Rick, he posted on here, he said it's also important to look at ADA dominance going in the wrong direction. And I agree. I don't want to see ADA dominance falling. You can just see ADA dominance falling. But I do want to zoom out, and I just want to point something out. At this moment, last cycle, ADA dominance was falling, right? And it wasn't looking that great. It wasn't looking very powerful at all. And you can just even see, and exiting the bear market, ADA dominance made a move to the upside, and then it just was falling right as the bull was starting, right? Bitcoin was breaking those bull market doors in November, and ADA dominance falling. Well, we're in a similar thing. ADA exiting the bear market and now falling again. I will like to say it is a lower high right now on ADA dominance. I'm not too big of a fan of how close it is from the swing low. I would like to see a little bit of a separation there. Back here we had a nice higher low. This higher low is, it's definitely a little bit concerning. However, we go over to the ADA BTC chart, same exact thing. It's all about zooming out for me, right? Swing low all the way back here in October 2017. And then we have the last bear market area, 2020, the exit of the bear market. And then this very similar area, December 2020, right here, higher lows across the board, right? And if we just look at this, ADA right now, higher lows across the board. So ADA BTC, even if you zoom out, just putting in higher lows, going into the Bitcoin halving, and this consolidation that's happening right now with ADA BTC, I think is normal. ADA, it's underperforming against certain altcoins, but I say this, if you just zoom out, it was doing the same thing last cycle. And then ADA had a nice breakout, right? And I think this is just a story. It's not just ADA. I think this is just a story that plays out for multiple altcoins and cryptos. I say time and time again, cryptos take turns, and oftentimes things get really bad before they turn around and they bounce, and then all of a sudden they kind of catch up in terms of market. And right now, things are uncomfortable. They really are. I get that. But if we zoom out on the charts, things look very normal, consistent. And as we prepare for the Bitcoin halving, I think it's a good idea to just take all things into account, especially as we start zooming in on the charts. We can evaluate structure, evaluate when things do start changing a little bit. But right now, as of right now, this moment, things have not changed too much, right? I'm going to continue monitoring this lower trend line. I'm not saying it won't break. We could see ADA fall below that, and we're going to have to track that story if it happens. But all the while, I'll also be tracking things like ADA BTC, and also even Bitcoin dominance. It's as we go into the halving, it will be interesting for the weeks and months ahead to see how Bitcoin dominance performs, because post halvings in previous cycles, that is when altcoins really stepped up their game. Even on the ADA BTC chart, that is when Bitcoin or ADA really stepped up its game. If you go look at the ADA BTC chart at Bitcoin halving, that is the moment when ADA really woke up right here. ADA woke up against BTC. So what's going to happen in the coming days, weeks ahead, I'm not sure. We will be tracking it, and I will be very curious to see what happens at Bitcoin halving on this ADA BTC chart. So those are my thoughts right now, everybody. Just kind of putting the charting data out there. There's going to be a lot of debate. There's going to be a lot of different opinions on what's happening right now in the markets. But this is what I'm watching. Hit the subscribe, hit the like. I will see you all in the next video. I appreciate you cruising through. God bless.